My name is Erica Martinez, and for 26 years, I have obsessed over the obsessible with only one goal: obsess. Now, using my voice given to me by my parents, or genetics, or, well, my parents are, whatever. Using my voice, I will talk to you about the things that I love. But to do this, I have to put myself out there. I have to be something else. I am Erica the Great.
So this is my first attempt at doing this. And I thought, since it is the week of the Arrow finale, that I would start with my, Arrow stuff. Because the plan is to do anything I'm kind of obsessed with, and the inspiration came from watching a bunch of videos on Arrow, and actually some video game videos, on YouTube. So I thought I would start with that stuff, and I'm planning on doing episode analyses, but since it's like the week of the finale, I'm gonna start off with a character analysis on our main boy, Oliver Queen. So, okay, we'll start with acting. And here's where there might be, I don't think there's debate really, he does a great job, but I remember when I first started watching the show, I only started watching the show right before third season started, and I was worried about watching it just because, for whatever reason, I don't even know where I came up with this idea, but I thought it was a spin-off of Smallville's version of Green Arrow, and Smallville was my first time kind of, it's the first time for like a live-action superhero show when I was a teenager. I'd been super into like Batman Beyond and all the Bruce Timm, Paul Dini cartoons, and even like X-Men Evolution. So I was like interested in seeing teenage Superman, and I loved it the first couple seasons, but then I ended up hating it. And I think that's like one of the things about Smallville is either you love it or you hate it. And I loved it, and then I disliked it. So I was kind of weary of going back into like a CW show that had to do with superheroes, because I thought it was by the same people and like the same guy who played Green Arrow there. And then at some point I found out that it was through Tumblr. I saw like photo sets. And I was like, oh, it's that one dude that I saw on New Girl. And apparently I'd seen Stephen Amell on, like, Vampire Diaries, but I don't remember that. But he was the one, one of Cece's douche boyfriends in the first season of New Girl. I always remember his character just because of one part where he's in the background of a scene. And he yells about loving brown people. And Cece tells him, that's racist, Kyle. So I always remember it was the boyfriend Kyle that Cece had once.
I love brown people!
That's racist, Kyle.
I only ended up watching the show because, like, I've always been into comic book lore and stuff, and so is my brother, but both of us were more able to get our hands on actual comic books. So we were actually, like, reading through comic books that we'd always known about and known, like, the stories of, but never read. So it was around that time my brother was like, oh, maybe we should see this Arrow show, because I keep seeing it on Netflix, and I think I heard it was pretty good. And whenever my brother says he thinks he heard something was pretty good, it's either he heard it from me or from my dad, because I don't know who else would be telling him anything. But, so he watched a couple episodes. I saw that he watched it, and he was like, it was pretty good. So I watched a couple episodes and ended up marathoning the whole first season, and then finding the second season and doing the same for that. It was like, once I marathoned it, my brother, he's a doctor, he doesn't really have time, but he took more time, and he ended up getting through it until he was caught up by, like, episode, I literally saw the show, I literally marathoned it the week before it started, and I think my brother caught up by, like, the 4th or 5th episode. He was on schedule with the show. So we got really into it, obviously. And when you first see the show, I guess in the first couple episodes, since you don't know Oliver that well, you can think, But then, and that's where I'm going to start talking about it, is at first you might think, like, ooh, Ollie right after the accident is like, I don't know if, like, it wasn't bad, it was just, you never hear a guy, like, scream. So anytime like, the first time Yao Fei throws an arrow in his arm, I was like, ooh, wow, you don't really hear guys scream like that, do you? But it makes sense to you later when you see how Oliver was at that time. Like, I think Stephen does it geniusly, that, like, first year Island Oliver has such a high-pitched voice in comparison to present-day Ollie. And, like, that's closer to Stephen Amell's actual voice, and, like, his Oliver voice now is like, ooh. That's his post Hell on Earth 5 years voice. And it was also kind of like there's a bigger disconnect between the Olivers we see in the first episode versus like as it goes along. Because like in the first episode you have baby douche Oliver and PTSD Oliver, who has like a goal, but he doesn't know how to deal with people anymore, really, his family or anything like that. And like Oliver, who's just like, ooh, I'm gonna take my girlfriend's sister on a sex cruise, and my dad's kind of a dick. That kind of guy. So it's like, really, there's a big disconnect in the first few episodes, I think was kind of a little jarring, but I could see that there was potential there, so I didn't give up on it because of that. And I knew I had to see where the character was going first, because it ended up making sense. And people say that it's not like some people I've seen kind of disagree with this, but it's clear that what he's playing in present day Oliver is PTSD, shell shock. Like, the guy doesn't know how to deal with like family members, anything. The only people he had contact with, horrible things happened to on the island or wherever. So he's like, whatever. And he's also at this point Dexter style killer. It's like Dexter over the seasons. He started off much more mechanical than he was at the end. That type of deal. So I think, yeah, that's actually became one of like my favorite aspects of the show, is just how well he plays Oliver in two different times of his life. So you have first episode, Oliver, like the first season, there's a few times he gets tortured or whatever, and you'll hear baby Oliver screaming. And he would never do that now. He would never, like, he got shot in the arm with an arrow the other day in one of the last episodes of the season, and it was like, whatevs. It's fine. I could deal with a arrow to the wrist, and, you know, he doesn't scream anymore. His voice, I don't even think, can go to that high a pitch. So I always thought that was fun on the acting front. And, like, as it goes forward, you're seeing kind of the mirror growth. Because, like, by the end of the first season, on the island, he finally just killed somebody. And by the end of, like, the beginning of the second season, that time period, whatever, he had stopped killing in the present day. So you're watching him become a killer and stop being a killer. So it's like these two different opposite paths the character he has to play on that character all the time. And I think that's, he does that really well, because you can always tell, like, immediately if I'm not watching a screen and I just hear his voice, I can tell if it's present day or, like, past tense Oliver. Especially, like, you would think going further into the story when he's becoming darker in the flashbacks that it would be a closer, but even in, like, Hong Kong flashbacks, still, there's still a bit of a hope in his voice that isn't there by the time you start season 1. Then he starts to get, like, he'll have in certain scenes, like if it's a heartfelt scene with one of his BFFs or with Felicity or anything like that, it'll change. But, so, anytime somebody starts getting snarky with Oliver, it's just one of my favorite things. Just, he does this thing where he puts his finger up, like, shut up, like, one of those things. That's, if I could GIF every time, or GIF, whatever, every time he does that in the show, I would, but there's so many. They're my favorite. Like, top scene for an example of that is the scene where Diggle says that, oh, I'm just his black driver now. Like, the minute Diggle says that, just watch in the background, Oliver just puts his hand up like, you motherfucker, shut up. That's my favorite. Okay. So that's just the acting. I think he does a stellar job of that, especially because at any one point he's playing like 3 to 4 different characters. So I mentioned with the acting, I kept talking about the growth of the character, and that's kind of what this analysis is going to, and it's not really analysis, just me talking about the character. But so I already mentioned, like, the voice. Like, if you see him first year on the island, he has such an innocent, like, I could see how Laurel, when we meet her, she's more stalwart and more of a bit more judgmental and closed off, how she could, like, stick with him even though she knew all the bad shit he was doing, like, while he was dating her, whatever, because he has, like, this baby, like, this, you know, hey, Laurel, or, like, when he first gets on, Dad, what are you doing? And honestly, okay, this is one thing that I'm just going to get into now. I can't be alone thinking that Robert Queen is an asshole, because the guy was obviously surviving better than his son by the time he shot himself in the head. Like, that, he just didn't want to deal with his problems on his own. That's the way, he probably figured out in his head that something had been sabotaged on that ship, or somebody knew something, and he was like, fuck it, I'm not dealing with this. My son can deal with it. He's half dead. This other guy's surviving, but I'm going to shoot him in the head. I'm going to shoot myself in the head, even though I'm the only one who's in any form of consciousness right now, and I'm going to have my son live with having seen his father do that, and also with all of my vague confessions, so that he could deal with it. And I think that was unfair to Oliver. Like, he shouldn't have put that on his son, and I think that's beyond dick. I hate Robert Queen. He didn't have the balls to do what he had to do himself to fix his fuck-ups, and I think that was shitty of him. Obviously, this is not a PG-13 podcast, or whatever it's gonna end up being. So, his voice starts off really high, and I think naturally, with how much he has to growl on the show, his voice naturally has gotten lower, but it's just a good progression, because you see him in that first scene, all over like, hey, Tommy, hey, Laurel, then you see present day, hey, Tommy, hey, Laurel. It's just not the same. Also, the way he looks at people, he has, like, a more open-eyed look in the flashbacks, at least at first, when he thinks he's just, like, stuck on an island. I think one of the best parallels to it, if you've played the game Far Cry 3, which I had seen before people compare, is, like, if you want a game, like, if you want an Arrow game where he's on the island, like, island set, just play Far Cry 3. It's pretty accurate. You see this kid who doesn't even, like, who's never killed anybody, really quick he has to become a killer, and you see how that kind of, well, it's, like, it's obviously a shorter journey, but whatever. You see him going from, like, normal douchey kid to killer at the end. It's pretty good parallel for Oliver on the island. And you're also watching him on the island, you're watching him become a killer. Like, the first time he ever kills is only, like, he can't do it when, like, Slade and him go to take the air base that Fires has. And he can't even, like, shoot that one dude in the tower. But when he sees Shadow in danger, that's when he's able to beat some dude to death. So that, I mean, meanwhile, in present day, he's dealing with Tommy thinking he's a killer. So that's pretty, yeah. And by the time he gets back to, so, like, you see him do his first kill or whatever, and you have to realize that at some point within these 5 years, he's gonna come back being full Dexter Morgan style killer. Like, okay, he's not tying them to tables or whatever, but, like, I think everybody's forgotten how many bodies he's dropped, because, like, dude's killed, like, at least 100 people, if you consider all the people, the 5 years, like, random mooks and whatever. Like, I think one of the episodes, season 1, Detective Lance tells, Roy and Thea, he's like, this is 26 body we have. I'm like, pretty sure he's killed more than 26 people at this point. I think everybody forgets that now, when he's like, oh, but they're a killer. It's like, nah, Oliver's probably killed way more people than they have. Let's be real. Like, he was straight up a serial killer. Like, he hunted a certain type of victim, which was a criminal, and he would put an arrow through them. He had some sort of MO and a persona and all that jazz. So at first he can't even kill a bad guy who's gonna, like, who can bring up all the Fire's men on top of him. So that's a big jump to get from one spot to another. I think the show does a really good job of kind of showing that. And I think people have felt like the Hong Kong flashbacks haven't been, like, on par with the island ones, but I like them because you're seeing where he learns more of that tactical mindset that he has once he's the vigilante or Arrow, whatever. Once he gets to that point, he obviously knows beyond just trying to survive in a forest or whatever is on that island, versus being more technical and more tactical and knowing how to get the information he needs or the whatever his target. And that's, like, what you're seeing him learn while he's in Hong Kong, kind of working with Argus. I miss him. Okay, I'll be honest to say that I miss him being more of a killer. Like, that sounds so messed up, but I mean, like, I miss some of that brutality, because I really love an angsty, broody character. So whenever somebody's like, oh, I wish Oliver would smile, I'm like, you shut up. No. He has to be evil. But not evil, but, like, just, like, I like that battle. And I like, that was one of the things that really brought me into the show in the first episode, is when you see him snap that guy's neck. I was like, oh shit, this is something different. And I really like that. And, like, I get why he doesn't kill anymore. But I feel like there's some situations where I don't think he has to be so strict with the non-killing. He dropped so many bodies. I mean, you just stop that. Dexter tried to stop and it didn't work. I mean, come on, man. I mean, I know that Dexter's supposed to be a psychopath, sociopath, whatever. But still. Yeah. But I liked that the Flash crossover episodes showed that even though he's stopped killing, he's still pretty brutal. Like, we don't get to see it as much, but, I mean, jiggling an arrow around in somebody's shoulder is going to fuck up their shoulder completely forever. So, I mean, I enjoy the more brutal Arrow, personally. But I don't think it's not, like, the fault of, like, character development insists that he goes in that way, that he stops being that killer. He's not a superhero, he's an anti-hero, more so. So, yeah, I mean, Green Arrow doesn't really kill people. Just the Hood did. So I get that. And also, Tommy did really lay into him with the whole, you're a killer, you're a serial killer, stuff after he found out, which is true. I mean, like, since we're perpetually on Oliver's side, we forget to see the point of view of these other characters. But, like, imagine, like, if my best friend went away for 5 years, came back, and all of a sudden I found out she was, like, killing people, I'd be like, yo, Lobo, what the fuck are you doing? Like, I don't think I can be privy. Like, I don't want to be an accessory after the fact, you know? Which, yeah, he basically was, since he knew what he was doing and didn't say anything that's accessory. So I could see why Tommy's death would cause him to be like, okay, I have to go about this differently. And also he started getting more, I guess he saw that people can change if they have the ability to. But I mean, some of the people he's taken out, like, obviously they're not going to get better with any sort. I mean, it's the same thing Batman has. Like, Batman would just fucking throw Joker off that ledge at the end of The Dark Knight. Ton of shit wouldn't happen in the future. Obviously, we didn't get to see that, but the whole game is, like, the whole thing Joker says there is, like, we're bound to do this forever. If he shoots you in the head, you're not going to be doing it forever, and you'll be done with, like, this terrible person. But then, where's the fun in that? You can't have more stories with the Joker. So, like, I see, like, I understand it, I just... So then, just kind of go over... So obviously the whole show is about his growth, and I think his relationships have a lot to do with that growth. So I'm going to kind of go through his big relationships on the show. So, like, the first big love or big relationship you learn about is Laurel. When you look at the flashback scenes with them together, you can see that they worked. And I think one of the big problems people have had with Laurel's character is that they didn't work after that, after they came back from the island. And I don't think this is so much problem with the writing as it is with Oliver not realizing yet that he's, too far gone from who he was, and she's too far gone from who she was for that to ever work again. Plus, he slept with her sister. That's... Most self-respecting women would not be like, oh yeah, let's get back together, bro. Like, that's just beyond whatever. Yeah, that's pretty fucked up. But I think part of the reason why he was so enamored and so insistent in his love for her after he came back from the island was just because you see, like, he focused all his attention, all his hope on getting home on this one little picture he had of Laurel. And I think that's actually her cutest scene with him in the flashbacks is when she shows him that picture. Like, that scene always made me like Laurel a little bit because you see her, like, puppy love for him, and even though he's planning to take her sister out on that boat or whatever, so he had this picture. This picture was kind of like his tether to his life before, so she became kind of more than Laurel. I'm sure even if he remembered all the bad things about the relationship, why he had issues with it, whatever, or why she might have issues with him, she became this beyond, this kind of bigger than life person for him. She came to represent him getting off that island, him getting back home, and, like, him returning to the life he had. Plus, he's holding the guilt from everything that happened with Sara, especially on the first year in the island that he thinks Sarah's dead. So I think that's why he was so insistent and so, not obsessed, but so, so dedicated to his love for Laurel coming back. And I think it was just what she represented more than who she was at that point. Because she was a completely different person. And I think that's, like, Laurel's a difficult character. It's not that, and, like, I understand people not liking her because I have moments where, like, I don't like her, but it's not so much that she's a bad character or, like, I guess people will debate on the writing, but in my opinion, it's not so much the writing, it's just that she's a very difficult character. She says it, I think, in one of the episodes of Sara. She's been drowning this whole time. Like, until Oliver came back, she hadn't dealt with anything. Like, she put all her focus and all her grief and everything into helping her father afterwards. And I think when he came back, it all kind of started to unravel a bunch of shit she never dealt with. She had to start dealing with. And by the time the second season comes around, her boyfriend got killed. After she went back to the one guy who keeps ruining everything, the law firm she had put so much into was destroyed. And yeah, she got a better job, but that's not the point. Like, she, obviously, if you see her in the first season, she's really dedicated to CNRI. So she has to have been really disappointed at losing that and losing her boyfriend. And so it's like one thing on top of the other. And in the second season, you're seeing her hitting her rock bottom. And that's difficult because we're supposed to be on Oliver's side, and she's, at this point, patently against Oliver. And I think part of the problem is also that she's expecting a level of empathy that she's not getting from people just because she's worn out all of their empathy. She's like, with my family or whatever, I can make a ton of mistakes, and they're always going to back me up, and they're not going to say I'm disappointed or whatever, when you get to a point where it's like they can no longer be doing that for you, that's got to be hard. And she's used to it, especially because, like, for everybody it's been, oh, it's Laurel, so they've been even giving her more pull, and those, you can tell Oliver keeps trying to over empathize with her, like, even when she's put there to, like, act as part of the prosecution against his mother. He's like, oh, but are you okay with it? Until one day he's like, okay, fuck it, Laurel, I can't deal with this anymore. Like, come on, it's not just about you. And I think after that is when, I started liking her character more. Like, I still had trouble with her, but by now, like, now I love Laurel. Like, I think she's worked through a lot of her issues, but I think that's what made her character so difficult. It's just that it's hard to watch somebody go through issues like that. Even if it's somebody in your own life, you kind of, like, pull away. And in a TV show, you can't really pull away and, like, look away from something that's that crappy. But you also see, like, in the flashbacks, I think you see how that they weren't really compatible before the island, but how they could be, like, they were both more naive, more childish, and they could play off each other better. I just think there's no way it was going to work after everything he'd been through. She's too idealistic for some stuff, and he hasn't really accepted who she's become since then either. So Sara, on the other hand, I think had Laurel not sabotaged Sara that first time at that one party that Sara says the story about, I think Sara would have been the big love of his life in that first season or whatever. Because I think he's always had, I don't know, the character seems to always play off better with Sara, even, like, the two different actresses, but whatever. Yeah, he says that he was trying to self-sabotage going after her sister, but, like, he hooked up with other girls while they were dating, apparently, according to the show. So if he picked her sister and he picked her for more than just, like, a one-time hookup thing, that's kind of different. You have to believe that there's some bigger connection there between the two of them than just him trying to self-sabotage. And, like, when they got back in contact on the island, it's just, like, a second chance for him, because he thought that she died because of him on the boat, and the fact that she hadn't, but she'd gone through all that. It's like, obviously, they've gone through something together, that's why they could get back together in the second season, despite everything. They have this shared experience that nobody else is ever going to understand. Like, Oliver doesn't explain those 5 years really well to anybody. And you kind of forget that sometimes watching a show. But he doesn't really tell them anything. Like, they barely, like, he's mentioned Shadow, like, twice to them. They barely know anything about Shadow. Like, I don't think, even though Slade was, like, their big enemy, I don't think anybody ever really actually explained Slade, or he ever told them about his whole history with Slade. So, like, he's never sat down and told everybody about that second year, at least. And Sarah's somebody who knows that second year already. She knows what he went through in a way that nobody else is going to know. So I think that's kind of where they kind of snap back together so many times. And I think if, like, I'm hoping, I don't know what character Katie Lotz is playing in the spin-off yet, but I think they've said, or at least Stephen Amell said, that door's kind of closed. But I mean, like, for the people who wanted that Black Canary, Green Arrow, like, on-off relationship, I think there's more of a chance of that type of relationship happening with Sarah's character. Like, that being Sarah's Canary. And I think if she's dead for certain forever at this point, that's what that was. That's why they kept going back to each other. And there was always a level of trust and intimacy that wasn't so much romantic. But I mean, there was a level of connection there that isn't one that he's going to have with Laurel's Black Canary. Like, she's not that character. Like, Sarah's more that character. And it's got to be fucked up seeing the same chick die a bunch of times. Like, come on. He thought she died one time, almost saw her die another time, then thought she died. Like he says, he was sure she was dead. And then she comes back, and then she's dead for sure. Like, I have a feeling that at this point, he's not even, like, convinced. He's just waiting for the day she pops back up. And then his relationship with Shadow. I think he really did care about Shadow. It was more convenience. I kind of wish we got to see more of that. But I always thought that was a cute kind of connection there. But I think they've shown on the show that most of his feelings about her now are more guilt-based than anything else. Though I did always think it was interesting in the Three Ghosts episode that, I guess at that point he knew Sara wasn't dead, but that he saw Shadow, that if he were to die, he would be going to Shadow. I thought that was interesting. I don't think they'll ever delve deeper into that, but he obviously felt strongly for Shadow. I think the one thing, now he was starting to fit in more with Thea, but he never really fit back with his family after he came back. I don't think him and his mom, they obviously were never on the same page. Well, because his mom lied about everything. He was lying about everything. And Thea complained about everything. There was a lot of dysfunction there in that family, especially with, I mean, it was kind of just a shitty family altogether. I mean, I wish Walter would come back so he can have kind of like that kind of familial parental bond with somebody again. Because even before Moira died, I mean, their relationship was really not good at all. And I think with Thea, she was also kind of considered annoying, especially at the beginning. I think she's under the scrappy tag on TV tropes. And I like Thea, but she has her issues, and I think it's being young, and she's been kind of stunted ever since, like, she was 12 with everything that happened, losing her dad and her brother. She has a known problem of not understanding other people's point of views from the beginning, which I always remember in the second episode when she sees Oliver's scars, and she's like, oh my god, how'd you get those? He's like, I don't really want to talk about it. I mean, if you look at him, he's like, obviously those are all horror movie type scars. And she's like, well, obviously you never want to talk about anything. I was like, come on, Thea. Obviously, kid went through something. Also, nobody ever asked him, where'd you get those tattoos, bruh? I was alone on an island for 5 years. Oh yeah, like my new tattoos? Like, come on, guys. Nobody ever asked about those. Oh my god. Like, Quentin should have asked about that in, like, the 5th episode. He's like, well, you have 20% scars. Where'd you get those? Nobody asked, what about those tattoos, man? Where'd you learn to write Chinese? Oh god, that's my favorite. Like, don't ask about these guys. I don't know anything about the tattoos. I did not have them when I left, though. And, yeah, but her character is always better when she's being told the truth. Like, she obviously has a trigger for lies. And I doubt they'll ever give it backstory, but I wouldn't be surprised if it has something to do with when Oliver and her father died. I'm sure her mother, if she was, only 12 years old or something, her mother would try to keep that from her for at least a while. Or her mother would try to keep dating Walter from her. And I'm sure, I mean, obviously Moira has a problem with lying, so I don't know, but I'm excited to see where her character is going now, and I like the idea of her becoming Speedy, though, obviously, with everything that's happened to her, they're going to have a lot to deal with next season. Like, people have complained that she seems to have come out of the pit just fine. It's just too early in that story to tell, I think. I think it's something that's going to build up her problems from that, and they've said it. They said that they're going to deal with that in season 4. But I'm glad that they're holding that off, because I think if, with everything that goes on at the end of a season of Arrow, to have thrown that in there would have just been too much. Like, Thea's character needed a break. Every episode I wish Tommy still lived. I love Tommy, and I think in the first season, without a doubt, he was the, kind of like that line in Dark Knight. Obviously, Batman and the Nolanverse films are very important to me, but it's like, the line about Harvey Dent is like, they took the best of us and destroyed him. Tommy was the best of us, man. Tommy is just, when you first see him, you think he's just like the douche friend that's not going to fit into Oliver's life, but he's like such a good guy. Like, I liked Laurel so much more whenever she was with him in a scene and they were happy together, not arguing about idiocies, and he was the only one with like a true, correct reaction to their best friend being a killer. It's going to take him a while, and he had to, like, he says that he had to undermine his own ethics to, like, bribe some dudes so that they wouldn't find the basement, so that there wouldn't be any problems for Oliver, and that was just too much for him. And Oliver is so distanced from who he was. I got why Tommy would be so pissed at all that. Like, he had the right for that. And then he died, and that really sucked, and I miss you, Tommy. I miss you, Tommy. I think everybody misses you, Tommy. And then you think about his current family, which is Diggle and Felicity, basically, and Roy. And I adore the Diggle-Oliver bromance. I think the show, the minute Diggle came into the picture as his confidant, it was after, I think, those couple episodes where I was completely sold and dedicated to the show, because I just loved them together. I loved that play between them and how open Diggle is in season 3. It's like, Oliver was my best friend. I mean, obviously they're going to have issues now, but that friendship, I think, without it, like people say without the core 3, but I think really without them too, without that friendship and that trust that they had, Team Arrow would fall apart. But also, I don't think Oliver, I mean, if Diggle ceased to exist, I don't think Oliver would be okay. I don't think he would maintain what he's become. Because, I mean, that was part of the deal. Diggle would always try to bring him back to who he was. And obviously Felicity, I mean, that's a huge thing. And I think it was Stephen Amell who caught onto it in their first episode together, that, like, the reaction he gives to her, like, that smile he gives her when she makes that really inappropriate joke about his father drowning at sea. Like, that was his reaction more so. Like, he was in character, but, like, that reaction just kind of came out. And I think when they're playing lightly off each other is when that relationship works best. And I'm not, like, a huge shipper on this show. I actually, like, I like them together, but I also really liked them with Sara, and I liked them with Shadow, so I'm not super dedicated to any one ship. Like, obviously, Felicity became very important to him, and became more of what the idea of Laurel was on the island. That's kind of like what Felicity is in present day. She's like that ray of hope for him. And I think sometimes he puts too much into that. And maybe she puts too much into him being good and doing the right thing. Because we know from first episode out, Oliver is not always going to do the exact right thing, but she puts that on his shoulders. And I think they still have a lot of growing to do. He would have had a harder time trying to stop being a killer without her there. I think she had big part, like, it wasn't just Tommy dying. I think because she also gave him hell for that in her first few episodes as part of the team. And she was never really okay with it. She always pointed it out if he said, like, oh, this guy was, like, so I think she was important for that. I think it's good that she had a chance to kind of branch out and grow outside of the team. Because, I mean, I don't know how young her character is supposed to be. I mean, technically she's supposed to have a master's, but you can get a master's. I mean, if she did engineering program, some programs are 5 years and you get your bachelor's and master's, so I don't know. I think she's supposed to be at least 24 at the oldest. She's supposed to be young, I know that. And I know the actress is younger than me, so lucky bitch. She grew, there's, at least in my life, there was a lot of growing between the ages 21 to 24. Like, she did a lot of growing within that group, and I think it was good for her to kind of branch out. And I really liked her, honestly, with Ray. And I know a lot of really, like, hardcore Felicity shippers really fucking hated Ray and thought he was problematic and stuff. And I'm not gonna debate anybody's feelings on that. I didn't see that. I thought he was he laid it on a little thick at the beginning, but I really love Ray, and he's obviously a really genuine guy and character, and really lovable. And, you know, even though he knows Oliver is kind of like his main rival for Felicity's affections, in the episode where they have to team up, he's so excited about it anyway. And I really fucking love Ray, and I'm so happy he's going to be on the spin-off, and I hope he gets more interactions with Cisco and the Star Labs team, because that was just gold. And goddamn, lucky Felicity, she gets 2 billionaires going after her. And a company. God damn it. Where do I sign up for Felicity's life? But she's obviously, I think it's shown his growth on that romantic level this season, because Oliver's been a playboy. Even after coming back from the island, he's taken many a lover. And this season, after their date in the first episode, that he told her that he couldn't tell her he didn't love her and whatever, and that he couldn't be in a relationship, he hasn't gotten any of this. Well, he did recently, but I mean, like, there was no flings for him this season. So, like, that, I think that shows growth on his character, because, like, he told her the same thing last season, that he can't be in a relationship. He can't open himself up to something that might become real, and he was directing that at her that early on. But I mean, like, that he got to a point where he doesn't even need the fling. I mean, that's good on you, Ollie. Kind of all went to shit. It's probably going to continue being shit for a while, or maybe not. We'll see. But I mean, I think if Bruce Wayne teaches us anything, you're going to end up an old man alone with a dog in your 80s, and everybody hating you. That's kind of just the trajectory for that life. Unless, I mean, I guess since he's going to be more like Green Arrow, he'll have his Greenpeace buddies, I guess. JK. But, I mean, obviously, the core relationships with Diggle and Felicity are very important. The fact that he was able to train Roy. That Roy felt so bad for just killing one dude, one cop, that he was willing to sacrifice his whole life for Oliver. And Oliver's killed, like, I mean, literally, I mean, it has to be over 100 dudes, because in Hong Kong, he's shot a bunch of people. Like, goddamn, he has to have killed a lot of fucking people. And I really kind of just want to run down, if anybody could give me, of what exactly present day people know about his past. Because I think, from what I can tell, I don't think they know anything about where his hood comes from. I don't think they know about Yafe, really. I don't think he's ever mentioned Yafe. I mean, they know Anatoly, but I don't think they know anything related. And I have a feeling, I may be wrong, but I have a feeling, and several other people have theorized this, that season 4 is going to be him in Russia, and that's how he gets the whole Bratva tattoo and all that. And I could see that, and I would be really excited to see Knyazov again. I really loved Anatoly, and I really like that they stuck his character in, but not as KG Beast, because obviously that is such a dated villain. It was like in Soviet Russia style villain, and but I love that character, the little bit we got with him, and I really love to see Oliver in Russia and speaking Russian, even if he pronounces everything slightly wrong. I really love it. But I don't think, I mean, like, nobody knew, like, I think Diggle knew kind of who Maceo was after Maceo showed up with the League, but I mean, obviously Oliver never explained Tatsu or anything that happened with their kid. Maceo told Diggle about that. Like, I don't think they know really anything about Slade training him in anything before he almost died. Like, I feel like whatever he explained about Slade was really vague. Like, okay, well, he was on the island with me, he got burned, and then we gave him this miracle stuff, and he went nuts. And then this other chick I was there with, so like, knowing his past, when Felicity says to me, like, what was this? I forget what she calls it, but she makes some joke about all the girls on the island, but like, it wasn't fun. Like, there were two girls on the island at once. I'm a girl, by the way. If I say chick, I'm sorry. That's probably whatever. But there was like 2 girls on the island, and within, I mean, I assume a couple weeks of maybe not even that much time being on the island at the same time, he had to watch one of them get shot in the head. So it wasn't a happy time. And then, like, Diggle only really knows that, like, he doesn't know anything about what happened in China, really. But, like, Oliver did, yeah. I kind of want a rundown of what exactly they know in the present day, really. Because I don't think I'm, like, 99.99% sure he hasn't told anybody that he's dealt with China White before. He definitely hasn't told Diggle that he's dealt with Amanda Waller before. But it does explain I think it's their first meeting in 218, I want to say. The episode where she gives him the info Argus has on Deathstroke/Slade, where she's like, oh, I'm surprised I'm not higher up on your list of people to, like, they obviously explained that with the whole Hong Kong thing. And yeah, I want to see where those revelations go, if those revelations ever really come out. Like, maybe if he gets into a more serious relationship with Felicity, he'll open up about more things. But, like, honestly, Oliver has a lot of baggage from those 5 years, and he could really use a psychologist, both, whatever. He could use a counselor, and I want to see more of that. And I think I'm just going to stop that there, so if you enjoy me rambling about this, and would like to hear me ramble about more things, or if you have an idea for how I should ramble about things, because I want to go through the series again and kind of, like, talk about each episode, but I don't know if that's, so if anybody has any ideas of how they would want to hear this, if they want to hear me ramble about things, or if I should just shut up and get the fuck off the internet, let me know. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I'm Erica, and see you next time.